good evening. We're glad to have you here with us, those in the boardroom and those joining us via Zoom. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1.3 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and the agenda is approved. Item 1.4 is input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. No action may be taken upon a matter raised. We have one request from Michael. I apologize. I can't have the last name.
Yeah, Sala.
Oh, come on up, please.
All right. So, the issue I had is, your guys' last board meeting in 2018, you voted on the same thing that you passed, but in 18 you guys rejected. That was the separation of genders in the bathrooms and the locker rooms and on school trips. So I wanted to start off by saying, Candace Wines and Jim Cooney, I thank you for your votes on continuing to stay the course. And then on the other ones, I'd like to know your reasonings, for coming back from the 2018 vote when you rejected that. And now the reason that it motivated you guys to change your decision and vote on it again.
Well, we can be pretty simple about that. We stated that in the meeting that basically our legal team said, this is it, we have to make this change. According to state and federal law, this is what has to happen. So,
and
very easy.
the repercussions if we didn't, what would they have been?
That would be a good question to ask our legal team.
And you guys didn't ask that before
We
voting?
did ask, but it's also
More than
not
likely
something.
more lawsuits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easily won if you're going against the law.
All right, well, you guys, I wanted to come here and say that, as parents, we depend on the school board to look out for the best interests of our children. You guys hold the watch, you guys vote on the policies and what you're gonna implement and what you're not. And just because a whole world is acting one way, doesn't mean a behavior is acceptable. Doesn't mean that our children, for funding or anything else, should be subject to how other people are acting. It should be left solely to the school boards. And that's what I believe. If it was a matter of funding, we could find something different, but we don't have to comply and we don't have to conform and we don't have to expose these children from all ages to what the rest of the country is doing. There has to be some kind of middle ground, moral ground, and this is the county that you guys are from. And I can guarantee it's strongly opposed. I have a daughter and I have, 5 sons. So, and up until this point, we've been so proud of the schools and the school district that we've been in and grateful. But after learning of this vote and seeing that it was only 2 people that stood fast,
We appreciate that.
I appreciate the ones that didn't, and I ask you guys to search yourselves and maybe come back on a decision on this. Publicize your meeting a lot better, especially on this. Get more input because we didn't know about it until after the fact, or else we would have been here.
Mm-hmm.
But our children, they have their whole lives to decide whatever they want to be and what kind of orientation they want to be. But they know as our children growing up, the best jobs that they can do is for themselves right now and concentrate on their school and their work, and that comes first, to give them that opportunity. The rest of their life is theirs. I can care whether my child is gay, bisexual, or transgender, but right now they need that opportunity without the interference and without the rest of the world saying that this is okay or this is what we should be exposing them to. What's gonna stop an older gentleman going into one of these bathrooms claiming that he's of that gender. You know, I mean, you guys are gonna have to come up with precautions about that. These children, they need help more than anything. You know, they need outreach programs, maybe counseling, maybe their parents do too, to help them. And I'm not saying that what they're feeling is right or wrong, but I think it needs to be explored more and nourished. But at the same time, we're supposed to be a country that's free. There's plenty of things I don't like and I ignore, but I'm happy that they have the choice to do that. But in a public setting like this, it's the best interest. What God gave you is what we should stay with. And until that time that they make that decision, you know, then it's another thing. But I don't think we're doing any kind of favors, and by conforming for whatever reasons, we'll fight it. You know, I mean, if you guys have ever been anything, you know, fight it with that, with everything in you. You know, not for personal like or dislike, but let them have a choice. These are young minds, and they shouldn't be, you know, persuaded in one way or another. So that's what I wanted to come here and say, is that I hope you guys will reconsider another vote. I hope you guys will take the actions, whatever it is, to publicize it, get it informed, have it in the hours or on a weekend when more people can attend. But we left that to you guys to keep watch over our children and their educations. And I feel like, except for two of you guys, you failed us miserably, horribly. And the least you could do is publicize it, have it heard again, and act again. And take that time to think about this. Who cares about funding? Who cares about if we have to fight or not? To keep it so these children have a choice and something isn't thrown down their throats. Mm-hmm. They come from different cultures and backgrounds, and that's good for them. Mm-hmm. But for everybody to be exposed to it, we are actually talking with charter schools and considering jerking our children out of school. And I'm sure plenty of other people are too. We've talked to neighbors and everything else.
Everybody's worried.
We never wanted that from here. But that's a consideration that we're having, because if it's an issue of funding or something like that,
Elko will come together.
you know, we can fight the good fight. But if it's that and a couple of other petty things, I'd rather take my children and go elsewhere. So that's what us as parents who've had awesome experiences with Elko. Mm-hmm. I mean, our children are excelling. My daughter's en route for an advanced diploma. I mean, honor roll. You know, it isn't hard with the parents' support for these children to excel. But in the meantime, they don't need these outside influences. Let them choose. I can care less if whatever gender or anything else, but let them choose. At least give them their childhood. So, you guys have any questions for me?
No.
Any statements you guys would like to make?
Well, just so
I
I'm
would like
clear,
to make an address.
You're recommending that those of us who voted yes on that repeal should vote the other way to break the law? The state
No,
and federal.
I'm asking you to look inside and think about what would be in the best interest of these children to have that ability to make their own
So you
decisions.
want us to vote the other way, break the law, and incur substantial legal costs that will hurt students?
No, it would not hurt students. What's more detrimental? That maybe we can't have as large of a board member, a board? We can't have as many perks as we can because we're being hand-fed other people's agendas? That's not this county's agenda? Incur these costs. Incur them as they must, but you have to take a stand somewhere. If you're sold that easily, you shouldn't be there.
That's right. And that's a fact.
Okay, I won't be here then.
Thank you.
Well, I definitely, you know, all I'm asking is vote again. Take the time out. Go out amongst the people, you know, have conversations, ask them, publicize it, get people in here and get their input, because I didn't know anything about this. And it wasn't until just recently you guys started doing it on YouTube. So get your involvement, because right now you guys are steering a ship with whatever you guys want to do. And we're looking for you to make the right decisions. And I feel that you've let us down, and it's partially our fault and yours, because nobody was here at the meeting. I didn't know about it. You know, other people could have came in and gave their inputs too. So am I saying break the law? No, I'm saying fight. I'm saying go to court, do the right thing. You do the right thing. There's nothing wrong with doing the right thing, or at least trying to.
Can
At
I
least at the
interject
end of the
for a
day-
moment? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tammy.
Just to speak to the point about the law. Okay, so in 2011, SB 331 was signed into law by Governor Sandoval. That is the level of law that we're contending with. It is not up to a school board to fight that law. That's like me telling a police officer, I don't believe in seatbelts, so you can't ticket me for it. It's my constitutional right not to wear one, but I have to wear one, and when I get pulled over, I'm going to get ticketed for not. So what I've been telling my constituents who are concerned, and I want to go back a little bit to 2000, it was actually 2019 that this meeting occurred in, that this policy was signed into place. The board made it really clear their position. So to blame the board and say you didn't look out for us is sort of disingenuous, because the board made it abundantly clear that that's the way they wanted it to go. Unfortunately, law is law, and we have to abide by it. So if you have an issue with it, I strongly suggest contacting your state representatives and trying to lobby to get it changed through the state, because it is an NRS. We have to abide by it. And a school board really isn't the place to fight this fight. It's on the state level. John Ellison is a very receptive advocate for Elko County. I strongly encourage everyone to contact him. He was at the legislature in 2011. He could speak more to what happened. They tried to appeal it or fight it in 2014. It went nowhere. He could speak to that. But the school board is really not where we draw the line in the sand over state law that was upheld by a federal court. So, I wish people could understand this wasn't a choice we made. This was, our hands were tied and we made the choice. So.
Okay,
Thank you, Tammy.
my reply to that is that then why did they have you guys vote again? And why did you change your votes when you voted again? If they're saying your hands are tired.
We repealed certain parts of that policy that were in violation of state and federal law.
Okay, so in that fact, if it's something that you guys really have no say over, then why are they this is a question for me, why are they pressing it for you guys to make these changes? If it's black and white and we need to take it to a different level, your guys' opinion should not have been in that.
Because why would you vote on something you have no control over?
I mean,
We have control over policy, this is a policy.
okay, well,
So the policy is Elko County's policy, then not the governor's.
It sure
not
is,
the
but if
Nevada
you develop
State
policy where aspects are
I'm
against
sorry,
the
sir,
law.
I have hearing, your mask is hard, I know, but what, can you say that again?
If we put in place a policy that is against law, state and federal, or even local, then we're gonna have to repeal those aspects.
So then again,
and stations.
this is an Elko thing, you guys chose to do this because you have
I didn't
control of
choose
the
anything.
policy, correct? Right?
I voted
Wait,
against
Can I
it
just
last
finish what I'm
time.
gonna say, sir? I apologize.
Oh, I thought it
Did
was a
you-
give and take.
Oh, it is, absolutely. I have a hard time hearing you, so I'm just gonna go ahead and ask what I have to ask real quick, and then I'm gonna really focus on what you're saying.
Okay,
So that's fair, I believe, because I can't hear. So
Okay.
here's this.
yes,
The policy is Elko County, correct? Because the federal law, the state law, and the governor have all said, this is what you guys have to do. That's what you keep talking about, breaking the law, right? Not being able to change it, not being able to do anything because you guys have no say in it. But the policy, I'm pretty sure that what I understood you say, or someone say, is that it is your guys' policy because you had to change things because the federal law and the state law didn't go together, or your guys' opinion didn't go together with the federal. What happened? Would you change? Does that make sense? What did you change?
yeah, you just reiterated what I said.
That's what I'm asking. Is that what you said?
We had to repeal the parts that were against state and federal law.
Okay, so when you guys did that, you guys repealed it, you guys changed it, that means that you guys must have a say in something. So therefore, we have a say in something, because these are our children, right? So when it comes down to something like that, and I heard you say, do you want us to break the law? Of course we don't want to break the law, but the law isn't the only thing that governs us. God does. We govern our children. Since I've been a mother, I'm 38 years old, but since I've been a mother, it's been the same type of school system that it was when I was a kid in a very similar way. I have no choice. I have to send my kids to school. It's a lot. I have to. Whether it's your schools or private schools or home schools, I have to send them. But what are you, as our school board members, the ones that are supposed to speak for us to the government and the ones that speak to us from the government, right? Where is our say? Because I don't have to send my kids anymore. I don't. This COVID thing really opened up a lot. Why? Why haven't we had a say? Because the majority of the kids, don't even, my kids, none of my kids, oh my God, up until they were like in 5th grade, didn't even know what sex was. I had a little boy come to my house, it was in kindergarten at the time, and ask me, what is a transsexual? I'm not his mother, I couldn't tell him that, right? Whatever information his mom gave him is fine. I don't have a problem with transsexuals. I have an uncle that's gay and very happy, and I love him, and he's great. But this is the problem I have. The rest of my kids didn't even know what any of that was, and this stuff has to be put on them. That is not anyone else's right here to tell my kid, my kindergartner, my 1st grader, 3rd grader, high schooler, that anybody is going to talk about sex with my kid unless I've signed a paper and I know exactly what's going on. I'll never, ever have no say in what goes on with my kids again. Never. And this is going to be something that I so hope that as you, all of you, you're a grandfather probably, right, sir? Okay. Sir, I hope to God that you think about that with your little babies running around, your little grandkids. I'm sure that you didn't raise a bunch of sex in their home. I did not. I wanted my kids to come up with their own thoughts on that stuff, but any kind of questions they've ever had, I've always answered, and so has my husband. But to send my children to school in a place where they could get hurt, they could see something that is so unfair. Nobody deserves to see somebody get hurt because they decided to be different. I understand that we have a new thing going on in our world now, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're just like everybody else. There's nothing, they're not different, they're not nothing wrong. But to have anybody, God, can you imagine an 8th grader being a transgender, being a little girl first, a little boy next, going into a boy's bathroom, everything being fine, but these kids may not be the best kids that he's hanging out with now. Maybe these kids want to teach him a lesson. You know how horrible that would be if my babies had to see that. I hope you guys are thinking about what you're all putting our babies in. There's a lot to think about. And sometimes the law should be something very important, but more important is our morals. And Elko is not a dirty place. And our children, changed or not changed, don't deserve to be put into a situation that is harsh and dangerous for them. I'm sorry. I trusted you guys with my kids because I didn't know better. And I pray to God that my children will be safe going to your schools if I ever allow them back. And I guarantee, because I know a lot of moms and they all feel the same as I do. Not just about this, but we're scared.
Well, not only that, since this will shut down and everything else, these parents have had to find other means for daycare and everything else where their schedules worked around the schools. But now they've already had that opportunity to find these things, and I hope they consider taking their children out of school and the policies no longer benefit their children or the children's right to have a safe and healthy environment where they're not exposed to these things. So they've had that time to look for other places to put their children, and hopefully they can continue their education outside of school if these policies continue to exist coming this way. Our sheriffs took a stand on the Second Amendment and made us
Proud.
made us very proud on the stand that they took against their own government. Now, as you're saying, the federal government, it also states that each state is to govern themselves. Our fight will be with our state. And that's where our fight will be, because the administration right now has made it very clear that it's these states governing themselves. And so that's where our fight will be. But what I want to do, what I would love to see is just hold another hearing. And if you have an overwhelming majority, you pack this thing full, and 90% of them, say, hey, fight this. Why can't you guys be like the sheriffs? Why can't you guys take a stand? This is part of being free. Everybody's free to do whatever they want, but we don't have to expose children when they're at a developing stage.
They're innocent.
And allow them to, get their education, be kids. Either they choose to be a girl or a guy when they grow up.
But that's their choice later. They're just
They still need this opportunity to live in both worlds
They're just little.
and function. And what we teach in our schools is these learning skills, these skills to take out into life. And no matter good, bad, or indifferent, it's all a lesson taught. But these children, teach them this way so they can survive in this world or any other world when they get older. But they need the fundamentals. They need that pressure not there. And take steps to encourage or help the children that are wanting to do this, but we don't need to expose other children who have no say in it. So that's all I had. What I'm asking is for you guys to have another vote. Get out there, talk to people, publicize it. I'll do my part if you guys would, on letting everybody I know about this. And I would appreciate it if you would, and you guys have a choice. I mean, it's easy to go with the flow and put your head down. Believe me, I've cut my nose off plenty of times. But doing the right thing, that's something that you can live with and be like, you know what? I believed in this. I found more benefit than trouble, and I went with it. And nobody's going to look wrong on anybody for that. And complying just because the state and feds say so.
Who's to say they're right?
Yeah, it's just that.
Let me interject though. You just said that the states have the right to govern themselves, and this was Governor Sandoval governing Nevada, saying gender equality had to be listed in the Nevada revised statutes in 2011. So your fight really isn't with the school board; it is with the state. And if you want to organize and you want to change the law, I really strongly suggest you start there. The school board does not have the power to change that law. But
they voted on it, so I think that they are entitled to my opinion.
We voted on a policy under the guidance of the law. You want the law changed. We took a stand in 2019 and violated state law. This is us having to correct it because, pardon my French, but shit was about to hit the fan. So you really need to take it up with the state and address the law. We can change the policy back, but it's still in violation, and we will still have to change it back to what we have now unless that law gets changed. So while everyone is organized, while everyone is passionate, approach your state representatives. I don't understand the resistance into changing the law and just wanting the school board to change when we will have to change it back. The law is the line in the sand. Nobody is above the law. Sure, our sheriff went against the red flag laws. This would not go that way. So I strongly suggest organizing and contacting your state representatives to get the law actually changed.
Who's this?
Thank you, Tammy.
Tammy?
And Michael, and I'm sorry.
Jennifer Salvo.
Jennifer, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. We have board meetings on the second and fourth Tuesday.
Yeah.
Except for the first Tuesday in July and the first Tuesday in September.
Okay.
They're always at 5:30 unless we are at a remote location because we travel to all of our different locations in our district. And we invite you to attend anytime. There's always availability, and we've made it more available with Zoom and YouTube than it has been in the past.
Yeah, and we noticed that. We appreciate that.
Anytime.
Yeah, that's actually something really cool you guys are doing, and we appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
But as far as, one more thing for me, I'm sorry, just real fast. When you do decide to do anything with our children, it won't be mine, but if you have anything that you're gonna do on voting, if you have any power whatsoever, because it sounds like you don't, but it sounds like you do, I'm not sure. I'm not sorry about that. But I hope that you use your morality. I hope that you use your common sense, because that's what I preach to my kids. Morality and common sense will get you a lot farther than anything else. So I hope that you guys will do that, and I hope that you won't be so angry next time we see you. It was nice to meet you all. Thank you very much. I'm gonna go home.
And Jennifer and Michael, thank you, and we appreciate you being involved in your kids' lives.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing for our kids is having their parents involved in their lives, so thank you, and thank you for your concern, thank you for your thoughts, and we welcome you to come back anytime.
And I hope I didn't come across as angry. I'm just speaking loud because I'm afraid you guys can't hear me. I'm not angry at all.
Thank you, Tammy, we're glad we can hear you clearly. Do we have any other input from the public? Cooney, do we have
I
any
have a
bills?
couple.
Okay. please.
I have just received an email from Shami Rodriguez. Not sure if there is a sign in, but I'm watching from home. Thanks for broadcasting these meetings. Okay, so that just came in. Earlier this week, I received an email for public comment from Jamie Jossert. Hello, I would like to submit the following questions for the upcoming public meeting on June 23rd. With the exceptionally high number of pre-K registration applications, we hope the school district has recognized the overwhelming need for early childhood education in Spring Creek. Can the district restructure the pre-K program in order to include more children? For example, make a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class and a Tuesday, Thursday class for both AM and PM. Can the pre-K program be incorporated into the public education system and be provided at each elementary school? Why does it rely on the grant, on this grant? And is there additional grants they can apply for? Would the district considering offering a program that can be paid for by parents? Best regards, Jamie.
Thank you, and I appreciate that comment. And as it's not on the agenda, we cannot take action on that, but we will certainly pass Jamie's comment along to the staff. Do we have any other public comment? All right, again, Michael, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Item 2.1 is receipt, review, and possible approval of emergency food service contract extension for school year 2021. All right, Mr. Smith.
So this is an annual process that we go through with our food service provider. There's very nominal increases in rates within it. It's signed by Mr. Pearson and is on the agenda for your approval.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I just noticed one thing that needs to be changed. It's Churchill County's contract currently, rather than ours.
What is it, Ron?
It's a line on, I think, the third or fourth page that is, it says Churchill County School District, rather than Elko County.
That's been corrected.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
And those changes, were they changes as per USDA or Nevada Department of Ag?
They
For the
were,
prices on each
they were,
meal?
so, yeah, absolutely. So what happened with this is our contract with Chartwell's actually expired at the end of this school year. And the normal process would be is that we would go out for an RFI, request for interest, for other food service providers to come in. And part of that process is actually physically those, Chartwell's and other food service providers coming out, actually touring the schools. Due to the COVID closure, obviously that was not allowed, so the Department of Agriculture allowed us to do emergency extensions of any expiring contracts with our existing food providers. So everything in there is traditional yearly roll-up. It's basically the exact same contract that we've had in place with Department of Ag adjustments worked into it.
Okay, was there any changes or variations in that, especially considering the food services during this COVID-19, that period of time? Did we see any modifications to the contract? So this is the only modification that we're looking at there.
Right, that didn't affect any of the contract that we had in place at all, the COVID closure. We went to an emergency food provider. It was called the SSO, the Summer Seamless Option. And that allows us to provide food service to students at a certain FRL rate in the summer. Normally, we've had that program at Southside and in Wendover. During the COVID closure, to ensure that all kids were fed, the Department of Ag rolled back those FRL requirements that allowed us to open up food service provider options in all of our attendance areas. Spring Creek was a little bit behind. There's a lot of haggling and a lot of angry phone calls that had to be made to the Department of Ag to convince them, while none of our individual schools in Spring Creek met the FRL threshold, we had about 1,000 kids out there that needed to eat. So once that situation was explained, they allowed us to roll out the SSO option in Spring Creek. The stopgap that was provided thanks to some of our community partners, Nevada Gold Mines and Kinross, provided us with a donation to cover the gap between when the Spring Creek schools were closed and no food service was being provided to when the Department of Ag approved our request. So based on that, no kids went without, which we're very happy to do. The other change in this contract is that West Wendover is now a 4-day school, so that adjustment was also made, but that's minor. It didn't affect anything in the overall cost or daily rates.
Any other questions from the board?
Chris, I don't know if you know that amount for the adult lunches there, does that indicate there's wide participation or not?
It doesn't, nothing in there indicates participation other than on the student side. That's just if teacher X wants to go grab a meal, that's what it's gonna cost him or her. That's all that is. So, yeah.
How would the board like to proceed?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve emergency food service contract extension for the school year 2021.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that contract is approved. Item 2.2 is receive, review, and possible approval of the resolution to augment the budget of the general fund, capital project fund, expendable trust funds, special revenue funds, and internal service funds for the 1920 school district budget.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the mics will pick me up back here. Come over here. And next, if I have to share my computer versus being up on the big screen, but. Give me a second. Go up there. Okay, now, the amended budget has been out on board docs, so I hope everybody had a chance to read and review it. A few things you should note, because I was just going to go through this pretty quick, was that there are 3 funds that aren't included in this one that we normally have, and that would be the Nevada Education Fund, the Adult Ed, and the Gifts and Donations. And that's because if you don't have a change in your resources or your expenses, you don't have to fill out the forms. But there was one little change on the Nevada Ed one. Let's make this up. So you can see the money stayed the same. It's still up on that one. It's supposed to be on this one.
What page are you on, Jerry?
Well, it's not in there, that's the deal. Because it's one of the funds that was out. And I'm seeing up here, it's still the other version. So I'll just tell you what it is. The money stayed exactly the same, but when Cassie was doing her budgets, she moved some expenses around. And so she moved them from regular education instruction to regular education other direct support, $8,000. But since the overall amounts didn't change at all, that's why we don't have one of those up there. Anyway, we're back to this. So on every one of these pages, we have an augmentation or a resolution before the actual pages the state makes us put in there. And the resolution will tell you exactly where the increases or decreases are for each fund. So on page, it's numbered 1, but in your PDF it's number 2. That it shows you for the general fund, for instance, that property taxes changed, school support tax, all these different things changed for a net decrease of about 5.9 million. And
Well, Jerry, on that, with the school support taxes, it's a negative 1.7. Are we getting, are those figures based upon what actual revenues that we've gotten within, is that the difference between what this shutdown is?
Well-
Or why do we have the 1.7 there?
yeah, what I do is when I go through, I estimate based on the collections to date. And so we had collections from local school support tax we start getting in August. So August through May, this was the average times 12 months is what it made the little change there.
Okay, so that is definitely the.
It is going down, so was the government services tax. Property taxes changed, and then after I put this together and sent it out, then I did find from the county that net proceeds of mines we should be getting in June, because they sent me the report that has the collections, for May. So we should be receiving it in June, about $1.5 million of net proceeds, and I had budgeted, 800,000 or 900,000 in here. So that should be coming up in 800,000. So that will be coming up both in this fund and in the capital projects or pay-as-you-go fund. Those both will be getting that, which is not currently budgeted in this form. Then I'll go down here a couple pages to the expense part. And you can see, obviously, it has to have the same decrease that the revenues did. But one of the things that happened is in the middle of April, our Mr. Pearson basically froze all the instructional budgets for across the district, which that's why we result in a bunch of these different savings in these categories. Also, a lot of travel had to be canceled because, nobody was flying, all the conferences were being canceled. So some education has still happened, but it's been more virtual than the in-person. So a lot of those costs did go down just because of the travel. And so all the revisions and stuff in the regular education down 4.5 million is not just travel, but a lot of it is because spending got stopped.
Those are just savings from the.
They're anticipated savings.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we're going to actually save that much, but that's my anticipation based on those. Then if we skip down to page 11/12, then this is the state grants fund, because I was only going to highlight the ones that actually had a difference, or a substantial difference. So the state grants fund, you can see that it went down about $500,000. And so I looked up to see exactly what we had, and most of it was this Nevada Ready 21 was in the December augment, but we didn't ever get the funding for it, so that came out, and that's what the difference is. Which is unfortunate. I hate to miss any grants, and I'm assuming next year we're going to miss more. So probably that tentative budget, or the final budget we just did for 21, the state grant funds will go down based on the information we're getting.
So Jerry, is this one that was just withheld at the time of COVID? How the state kind of?
No, I just leave in the budgeted amounts from the prior year, and then Cassie found out that we weren't getting it, so she then removed the budgets out, and that's when I took it out. Let me see, let's go to page 16/17 is the special ed fund. And I just want to let you see that there's some restricted direct federal government that went down. And that was the Medicaid money we were hoping to get. And we have gotten some, and Keith has gotten some more bills because we have to pay the state share, and then we get the whole federal share. So I don't know how it works exactly, but that's So we get like 65%, but we have to pay, or we get 100%, but we really should only get 65%, so we have to pay the 35% back to the state. Anyway, so this part here where it's is exactly what we've received to date. So if you go to the page after, it shows this unrestricted direct federal government went from 146 down to 20,000, and that's exactly what we've received to date. But I would not be surprised if we get more. And if we get more, that means then the transfers offsetting those would go down, because obviously the transfers had to go up to make up this money we had originally thought would be in there. Then, let's see. Come on page 21, this is the other special and miscellaneous fund. Just one thing to note here is on the line that says services provided other governments, it went down. And normally that stays steady year to year to year. But Casey let me know that the geothermal user group has sort of disbanded because they were having so many issues with that geothermal system that nobody wants to put in enough money to actually fix it correctly. So no one else contributed to it this year except for us. So that's why that's a decrease. I just thought that would be something for you to know. Then let's see. Oh, come on. If we go to page 26, this is the federal fund, and if you see at the bottom there, it's up about $360,000. And so I looked to see what made up those increases, and Title I is up about $220,000. There's a Title I set aside that's up about $20,000. Title IIA is up approximately $60,000. 21st Century up $20,000. Perkins, which is our technical ed, it's up, yeah, it's up about 10. The local plan, which is for the special ed, it's up about 15, and then Title III is up about 10. So there's a lot of them that have gotten more money in the federal grants, and they're allowing us to have bigger rollovers to next year, which is good because a lot of that will also not be expended this year because of the COVID and a lot of things not happening. Then if we go to page 31, this is the food service, and I was just going to mention that the daily sales obviously are down because students aren't in there eating, you know, not paying for their lunches, but the federal funding has gone up. And then we had, I recognize that donation that came in from the mines that Chris told us about. Then, let me see. Page 41, that is the capital improvement fund. And so obviously the property taxes went up, and we're going to have that additional net proceeds coming in here. I also showed the investment earnings increased, and I'm not sure that's going to stand through the end of the audit, because usually the county will book unrealized gains and losses on investments, and that if they end up with a big loss, which right now, based on how things look, they could, that could then wipe out that extra investment earnings. But as of right now, that's where it looks based on the number of months we've received thus far. Then, just a couple comments on our internal service fund. So on page 51, we have more internal, more health insurance premiums, but we also have a lot more expense. And I know you've noticed in the accounts payable, we've been giving them part of our premiums early. And thus far this month, we've already given them well over half of our monthly premiums. And so I can see pretty soon we're going to have to just make a contribution to that fund to keep it whole so that the cash flow will still be there to pay claims, because we have to pay those every week.
That's in addition to, in the accounts payable, it looked like there was 500,000?
Yeah, that's part of the advance.
Okay.
And since we've had to do that, 300,000, 400,000, whatever, that's just been the advance premiums. One of these months, we're just going to have to give them some more money and not say it's advanced against current, premiums. So I'm just telling you that's going to be coming, I'm sure. Then if we go to the workers' comp, which is on page 53, then we had more premiums in there as well. And then I just budgeted the rest to go to expense under benefits. I don't anticipate we'll spend $2 million in the workers' comp fund. If we were going to have a huge jump in claims, it would be in our unemployment fund, not our workers' comp fund. They've been holding steady, but we just budgeted that, so if something happens between now and the end of the year, we can cover it. So those are the big highlights going through there pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I'll leave.
Is the legislature gonna hold a special session to work these state budgets over?
I haven't heard it,
They keep talking about it.
yeah, but I mean, I haven't heard
Have
one
it in
scheduled.
early July.
Early
It
July.
was supposed to be late June, but because of COVID, they moved it to, they say early July.
Oh. What will that do to,
They're gonna figure out how to patch the hole in the dam.
Yeah, what we've heard, or the latest I had heard when I was in meetings with Mr. Pearson, was that they want to keep our general funding whole, and so they would take pretty much anything else. So probably that state funds would go down. Could be they'll take, because they give us that Nevada Ready Fund, they give us the adult ed, they give us class size reduction, and they give us all those state funds. So it could be any or all of those funds goes from here down to here or gone completely. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, the interim finance committee meets Thursday, and the main topic is gonna be what they're doing with this hole in the budget. So,
$800 million hole, isn't that what it is?
well, up to 1.5
Last I saw it was
billion.
1.3
Yeah.
billion, and of course, things are gonna, until we get back to normal, it's gonna continue to get worse.
I think one of the key things with the special session and not being able to, the governor's office, I don't think has come up with the numbers to fill that hole, and until they do that, until the governor's office gets that done, then the special session, they've got to have something to work with, plus the legislature, LCB, and all of them. They're trying to figure out how to keep the social distancing and everything else opening up the legislature, so it's crazy.
And I'll tell you, I did attend a webinar today. It was an all-day continuing education that I planned to attend in person, but it got moved to a webinar. And one of the sessions was about the economic outlook. Okay? So it was kind of interesting. One of the facts he said was that the economy most impacted negatively by this virus, Nevada was the first one. So.
Yeah, with 30% unemployment, that's a big reason why.
I believe that Senator Gokachia has talked with Mr. Zander and has requested he be down at the interim finance committee on Thursday, so.
All right, any other questions from the board?
I move to approve the resolutions to augment the budget, general fund, capital projects fund, expendable trust funds, special revenue fund, and general service funds for the 2019-2020 school district budget.
Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Thank you, Keith. Chair votes aye and that is approved. Item 3.1,
We do need to have everyone stop by and sign those.
Left it all over there on the.
So those of you who are here can sign, but the other ones will need to come in and get those signed.
When does this have to be in? Again, I asked that question the last time.
Well, this one doesn't have a specific deadline, but it has to be in as soon as possible.
Okay.
so everybody on Zoom, did you hear? Tammy, Keith, Candace, did you hear you need to come in and sign?
Yep, I'll be there.
Right, Candace and Keith?
Yes, I heard her.
What was that?
So Keith, you'll need to come in and sign the budget at your earliest convenience. All right, item 3.1 is our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and our consent agenda is approved. Item 4.1 is a report from our NASB director.
So I forwarded you guys an email that they have more COVID update. We're not gonna get to 70% herd immunity if everybody's hiding behind a mask and hiding at home, my opinion. That's about all I have to report.
All right. Thank you. Item 4.2 is items from board members.
I've got a question. I know that we had some position changes. Mr. Walls went from special services to director of elementary ed. And looking at that particular position, where are we at with the good news that Jerry's given us right here, and potentially with the good news that may come out of the interim finance committee? Are we going to hold off on the hiring there of the special services?
Well, it's currently posted. I actually spoke to Dr. Robinson through text today, and she agreed to extend the posting to July 3rd, which will give her time to get here and have that very discussion. But it is posted, closing date's July 3rd.
Okay, yeah, because if we're looking at the questions about how we re-enter is going to have a significant impact on everything, and obviously everybody in the room realizes that. But you know, I'm of the opinion that the closer we have our re-entering school this fall, as the same way that we have for 100 years, we started right there, and if we have issues that come up, if you had a hot spot, as an example, we don't shut the entire district down. We go look specifically at a site and we address the issue right there. I know that perhaps if parents are uncomfortable with having their son or daughter, their student there at that particular point, I think we as a district need to have some well planned out curriculum and distance learning opportunities, and it becomes a parent's responsibility at that particular time to ensure that those kids are there for role and doing the assignments instead of some of the things that I think occurred during the last 3 months. So,
Well, I can assure you that our reopening committee is attacking each and every one of the points that you just brought forth. They're going to have a robust plan to bring to the board at least 20 days before the opening of school, which is what has been prescribed by the Department of Ed. And they're looking at everything from opening regular to full-on virtual to a hybrid model that mixes the two. Obviously, to do any of them, you have to fully develop all of them so that you're ready to do whichever one is necessary based on the conditions that happen as we move forward.
Who ultimately makes a decision on what we do?
Well, I guess it would be the board. The Department of Ed prescribed that we needed to form a committee, a reopening committee composed of various members of the stakeholder group, the district stakeholder group, and we have members from all of those stakeholder groups on this committee, including a board member. And like I said, at the end of the day, that committee will bring forth a plan that will be, at minimum, a mix of a fully developed plan to go back regular, a different plan that's completely virtual, and some sort of hybrid blend of the two, which is obviously the most difficult one to do. The other two are easy. Normal is normal, virtual is virtual. Where you get into very difficult dynamics is a hybrid blend where you have some face-to-face contacts where you have to maintain social distancing guidelines. And how do you do that with classrooms that are of X area? You can only put so many kids in one of those rooms and maintain a 6-foot social distancing distance. So they have some big hurdles. I know I read today Clark County, every district is confronting the same exact things, and I'm sure there's going to be lots to learn from other counties as we move through the month of July. Now, obviously, Clark County has lots of additional resources to figure things out above a district like ours, and so typically you can learn a little bit from what they've derived and what Washoe's derived, and if it aligns with what works here, sometimes you can steal some of those good ideas. But Chris is the chair of that committee, and I don't know if you're meeting daily, weekly. What is your schedule, Chris?
So we meet with the full committee weekly, every Thursday, and then the 4 subcommittees also meet once a week individually amongst themselves. Right now, most of the work is being done in the academic committee to back up what Mr. Smith just said, exactly those things that you just mentioned, member Cooney, and it's a huge issue right now. The state has asked us to create 3 models, A, B, and C, full reopening with additional health screenings in place, a blended model that takes in social distancing, and then a full distance model. So all of those are in place. The one thing that we are looking at, and again, as you mentioned, Member Cooney, is additional accountability for students. A lot of the waivers and a lot of the emergency precautions that the state put in at the closure this year, they've already come back and said, we're not doing that again. You have 3 months, get it figured out for full accountability measures. So all of that's being taken into consideration.
I think it's important for all of us to understand that, we sort of got hit by a freight train in March, and nobody had any time to conceive of a school closure of 3 months and an immediate shift on the fly to a virtual school district. So we learned from that, and If it's necessary in the fall, I'm convinced we use some of the CARES money that we got to be prepared to be one-to-one with our kids. Some of that money went to hot spots to address connectivity limitations that we have, and we'll be ready as we can be this fall to be completely virtual if that is in fact what we need to do.
Well, I think this is my thoughts right here with what we did over the course of the last 3 months. We're going to be suffering, we're going to be feeling the results of that for 12 years. It's going to impact everybody, kindergarten kids, and there's going to be a void, I think, in their education. And, it concerns me that as we look at alternatives, if kids go to school only a partial week or whatever, that the teacher's opportunity for contact time and learning is reduced down anywhere from 20% to 40% of what they'd normally be able to do. And that is totally unacceptable, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think everybody shares that, that feeling.
I'm waiting for Brian to kick the box out from underneath me here, so I'll step off.
Well, I don't think this is a place. I do disagree with you, but I don't, not the place to do it. We'll see what the committee comes up with next month.
I'd like to make a couple of comments. Number one, I want to say that I do concur with Mr. Cooney. These kids have been through so much already, and to expect them to go back to school and have something completely different is just going to really, I think, mess them up even more than what's happened in the last 3-4 months. With that being said, I want to reiterate that these are guidelines. They're not laws, they're not regulations, they're guidelines. And I can't see it. Maybe the committee will come up with something, but I cannot see how you are going to maintain a 6-foot social distancing guideline, especially with kindergartners, first and second graders, or frankly, any of the classrooms. We do not have the capacity for that. So I just want to reiterate that I think, what's going to happen every time there's a flu? We have to shut the whole school down. It's become unrealistic, the guidelines and the expectations here. I think if parents are concerned about sending their child back to school, they're afraid that they might get really ill. And I think there are instances for certain kids who are at risk that those people would have to have some sort of separate areas perhaps, or some better way, maybe the distance learning, because they are at high risk. But I just think we have to have the expectation that at some point these kids need to come back, because every time somebody sneezes, we can't be shutting the whole school down. And so I would hope that this committee would really take that into consideration. Secondly, I wanted to ask Mr. McInerney, I see that there are several surveys that have been sent out to not only parents, but students and then faculty. And I was wondering when we might be seeing the results of those surveys. Will we have that before the committee comes with their recommendations, or at the same time?
No, surveys, those will be open for approximately a week to 2 weeks. And all of that data we're using to compile to create our 3 plans. In addition to the parents that are already on the committee and the board member on the committee and local health experts and emergency management people that are also on the committee. So it's a wide ranging committee. We've already had, Mac Robinson told me today, we've already had 900 responses to those surveys, and we put it up yesterday. So yeah, we should absolutely, it's gonna be up for about a week. It's a self-compiling survey. So that should all be very, very good, very, very effective data that'll help us create our plans as required by the state. Department of Ed.
Candace,
Okay,
does that
thank you.
answer all your questions?
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other thoughts or questions from the board? All right, good luck to the committee. We'll just say that. Item 5.1 is our superintendent's report. Mr. Smith?
So, three things on the superintendent's report. There's a vacancy summary that you guys have requested at each board meeting. Construction update from Casey and the FY21 Part A class size reduction application.
Questions from the board?
I had a question. Yeah, I have a question, probably for Mr. Smith. I noticed that, on the class size reduction application that our kindergarten classes are, way over what they should be, and can't imagine being a kindergarten teacher with all those students, honestly. But I did some research today, and I was not finding anything that says that full day kindergarten is mandatory. So if somebody has that NRS or NAC that they could send to me, I would love to see it, because I have not found the research that says.
I can provide that for you, Candace.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, they changed it actually in 2017 was the year it became mandatory statewide full-day kindergarten, but I'll provide you with that documentation.
Would there be any way to petition the state and, with special circumstances, saying that we can't find the kindergarten teachers, we can't hire them, the ones we have are being overwhelmed, and petition them to go back to a half-day kindergarten situation?
Well, almost on a weekly basis, I see Governor Sisolak waiving different current NRS requirements. There was one that came out today related to teacher licensure and things that pertain to testing requirements for teachers and courses for alternative route licenses. So, that would be something that I wouldn't think would be off the table, although I'm not sure what the pathway to that would be. But, they're making concessions and adjustments to all kinds of things in order to make things work. So I guess I would say it's theoretically possible that they could waive a full day kindergarten requirement for a certain school year and then shift back to it. But we'd have to explore what that pathway would be to see who would be able, maybe it would be Mr. Ellison, I'm not sure. Maybe that's something that Ira could take through NASB and float that out there and see if there's other districts with the same, concerns, and if we could get traction, perhaps that's something that could happen.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Thank you.
The other thing I would add, Candace, to that, this is just an application, and all of those numbers in there in regards to kindergarten are completely theoretical. Keith, when did we do kindergarten pre-registration?
We opened it last week, I believe.
So, the pre-registration's only been open since last week, so those numbers are, we just don't know what they are. So,
think if we're having to look at, reducing class sizes in general in the fall, looking at half-day kindergarten would definitely take a lot of stress off of that part of elementary ed.
And it would also provide us with the means to comply with established class size reduction ratios, which ever since they shifted it from 25 to 16, the district has not been fiscally able to do it. It would require approximately 1.5 million a year to get there.
All right, any other questions from the board? Moving on to 6.1, approval of the accounts payable.
I move to approve the accounts payable.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Is that a raised hand?
Nope, sure is not. I'm waiting for yours.
I'm waiting
Meeting
to,
speech.
I will disclose that I have a family member whose employer is on the accounts payable, so I will also be abstaining. All right, no other comments? All in favor of approving the accounts payable, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair abstains, and the accounts payable are approved. Item 7.1 is a final opportunity for comments from the public. I don't see any in front of us. Mr. Cooney, have you had any
I
additional?
don't have any on my email, Madam Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for those who have joined us in our first meeting back in the boardroom. We appreciate your attendance in whatever method you're attending. Item 8.1 is adjournment of the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and we are adjourned. Thank you, and everyone have a good evening.